everyone, and welcome once again to Caleb Likes Books. Today I have another book review for you, and that is for The Shining by Stephen King. This is my 8th Stephen King book, I believe. Prior to it's been about 2 years, I think, since I read my first Stephen King book. I read Salem's Lot in October of 2023, which was my first. Since then, I have now read 7 other Stephen King books, so in case it's not obvious, I have come to really enjoy his work. And I was really interested in reading this one for several reasons. First of all, this is arguably Stephen King's both most well-known and most beloved book. Most popular book was adapted into an iconic movie and all this stuff. And it's one that I had always heard a lot about, but I actually never really knew much about. I knew that it took place in a hotel and it dealt with like the main characters kind of devolving into madness of some kind and things kind of going badly. But that was the extent of my knowledge about this book. Actually, out of several of the Stephen King books that I have read so far, I haven't really known that much about any of them, this one included, going in. So I didn't really know what to expect from this outside of, literally what I just said. So there was actually a lot about this that surprised me a lot that I had no idea about. Even like the basic premise of this book was basically a surprise to me, which was a lot of fun. So as far as what I thought about it, I really enjoyed it, as I have enjoyed every Stephen King book that I have read so far. It's probably one of my least favorites personally, but it is just as good as many of his other books, in my opinion, at least the ones that I've read. So as far as what I enjoyed about this book, I think this book, first of all, has an interesting premise to it. Of course, this is a horror book. So the horror of this book, essentially, it tells a sort of a haunted house type story. Although in this case, it is a haunted hotel in which the Torrance family, which is Jack and Wendy, who are both married, as well as their son, Danny, stay there during the off season as caretakers, or Jack is the caretaker. And it turns out that some very bad things have happened in this hotel, and because of that, it has like this malevolence to it that causes things to go badly, causes people to see things, causes just all kinds of bad stuff. It's just not a good time. And the people who are especially affected by this are people who have what is called the Shining, which is basically this ability of like precognition and like mind reading kind of thing. It's kind of just this interesting kind of ability that their son Danny has, and kind of the book initially is him kind of starting to see things, and eventually things just kind of devolve from there into his parents also beginning to see things and becoming affected by them and all this stuff, and eventually things just kind of go badly, as you would expect for a horror book. So it's an interesting premise. It's not one that I personally find as interesting because I personally am just not as much into like hauntings type of stories, but it's very well done. The thing I think this book does best, I think, is twofold. First is the atmosphere and the characters. So I think, Stephen King is an author that I think is very, very good at writing horror. And obviously that's not all that he writes, but I think he's known as the king of horror literature for a reason. He is very, very good at writing it. He's very good at writing the suspense, the dread, the sense of, almost like inevitability to it. Like there's a sense that I got reading this book, and I get from others of his books as well, that like things start going badly and you just know like it's just going to get so much worse by the end. It's just this sinister nature to the stories that he tells that he's very good at conveying, the scares. This book, I would not say is overtly horrifying. There's some pretty unsettling moments in it for sure, and in fact there were several times where I was sitting down to read this book and I had to think, am I like, am I in a good mindset for this right now? Because it was actually at times kind of unsettling for me. But I wouldn't say it's like overly scary, but it is pretty scary at some points. Definitely has a lot of that unsettling atmosphere that you get from something like one of Stephen King's horror books, I think. It's also just a very atmospheric book in general. Out of all the ones I've read, I'd say this is one of the most atmospheric Stephen King books, and I think a lot of that is due to the actual style of the writing here, which really kind of gets into the characters' heads a lot, and through that kind of pushes that atmosphere, and that's done very well. And the characters as well, like I said, also one of the strongest suits of this book. I think King is an incredible character writer. And the main characters of this book of Jack, Wendy, and Danny are all very well done. They are not some of my personal favorite Stephen King characters, but they are all written very well, written in a way that feels real and authentic. They all have you get a lot, like I said, their inner thoughts and inner dialogue, which is done very well and kind of helps to flesh them out a bit more. And again, kind of pushes the atmosphere a bit and just the sense of things not going well. And they've all got they're fleshed out very well. Like Jack has had some issues before with alcoholism and violent tendencies, things like that. Wendy's very well fleshed out, and Danny's very well fleshed out, especially with that kind of precognition ability. Danny, actually, funny story real quick, I had no idea Danny was in this book originally. I thought this was exclusively Jack and Wendy, from what I was aware of from the movie, which wasn't much, but I didn't even know that there was a child with these abilities that was a part of the book and kind of the driving force behind it, and that turns out that's actually in there, so that was a big surprise to me, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, the characters are all done very well, the side characters as well. There's like the hotel manager who is done very well. There's also Dick Halloran, who is, I would say, besides the family, probably the other main character of the book, who also has the shining ability that Danny has, and is also not like as major of a character as this family is, but is probably the next most major character, and he's done very well. He's maybe my favorite character in the book, if I had to pick one. I really liked him. And just the characters in general are done very well. The horror is done very well, like I mentioned. I also I think this book plot-wise was pretty solid. It has a really good ending that is, I think, kind of well foreshadowed in a way. And not overtly, like I wasn't really able to really predict the way that this book would go. I mean, I could in some areas, but not so much for the ending itself. But there's things that are set up early on that are really well paid off, that I really enjoyed about it. And the story that it tells is pretty simple. It's essentially just these people in this hotel. Eventually they kind of go crazy. The hotel, like I said, hauntings and causing hallucinations and all kinds of things, has this malevolence to it, like the actual hotel itself, that causes things to go badly, and that's done very well. And that really is most of what I have to say about this book, I think. If I were to point at anything I don't like, is like the reason why I would say this is one of my least favorite Stephen King books so far is just because I think, first of all, I don't think it's his best character work. It's still very good. I mean, Stephen King writes great characters, like I said. And I think even, in this, which I think was only his third book, his characters are still done very well. So I think that's just a natural talent that he has for writing. But, the characters are not necessarily my favorites he's ever written, even though they're done well. This story is not my favorite he's written, even though it's done well. The concept behind it, of the horror and everything, is done well. It's not my personal preference. So it's a very well done book, and I would say quality-wise is equal with something like Salem's Lot or Misery or things like that. Just as good as those books, but I would say is just not so much my thing personally. So overall, I really enjoyed this book a lot. And like I said, I think it is in many ways just as good as his other books. It's just not one that, like, for me personally is like an all-time favorite, like something like, I would say my favorite of his at the moment is probably Pet Sematary. So it doesn't quite hit me like a book like that does, but it's still very well done. Really good horror, really great character work, really good sense of atmosphere, all that stuff. Just a very well put together, very well done book. So as far as a rating out of 10, I would give this, I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10. I could probably push it like up to like an 8.5 or something, because it's just done very well. But for me personally, I feel like an 8 feels appropriate. So overall, I did really enjoy this a lot. So that is pretty much my thoughts on this one. Let me know in the comments if you have read The Shining and what you thought of it, if so. Now I'm gonna have to go and pick up Doctor Sleep, which is the sequel to this book. So let me know in the comments if you would like to hear me talk about that, what you thought of it, if you think it's a good sequel. It's probably not something I'm going to prioritize a huge amount, but I would like to read it at some point. If you have read this before and you've read other King books, let me know how you think this compares. If this is one of your favorite King books, if it's one of your least favorites, whatever you think about it, let me know down in the comments. And I do, of course, intend to read more Stephen King in the near future. I am planning to hopefully read The Shining and It, or not The Shining, because wow, It and The Stand in the first half of next year. So that is going to be hopefully coming very soon, and I'm very excited for those. So that's pretty much it for this one. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.